The modern gaming industry has been collapsing for a while, but this year, things have really accelerated, and that's been on the back of so many games bombing, but it also feeling for a positive change that they've been bombing for the right reasons. It's not like in years past where you might have a really good game not do very well commercially, and that's because it maybe wasn't dumbed down enough, it wasn't commercial enough, so it flops despite being really good. This year, it seems like all the good games, the genuinely good ones that were not only good video games, entertaining, but they weren't pandering, pushing bullshit messages, those games have been succeeding. They've been doing extremely well. But the ones that did absolutely bomb, they were the ones that did feel corporatized, no original ideas. The game devs working on them, not real developers. They're actually activists who think they're changing the world by influencing everyone by shoving their real world politics into them. But then no one sees it anyway, no one plays these games, so they totally failed. But the whole thing just a mess. But it's a good thing for gamers. The right games have been failing. And it's not even just that. If you sort of zoom out outside of what games people are buying and so on, and you look at games media, for instance, it's never felt mainstream games media less relevant than it does right now. Like the IGNs, the Kotakus, they're all winding down. The industry's consolidating, meaning that a lot of these sites are getting bought out by the last remaining ones. Again, like IGN, they're buying up a whole bunch of the almost dead game journalism companies. That's a sign that the industry is pretty much dead. It happens in other industries like ATMs, for instance. It's happened to other industries like the ATM industry, those machines that you can withdraw cash out of. If you're under 30, you probably don't even know what those are. But it's just a sign that the domineering hand, kind of like the hand from Super Smash Bros. Controlling everything within the gaming industry, that is just starting to fall off. You throw in X as well, since it got bought by Elon Musk, and there's just way more discourse out there now, whether it's from YouTube content creators, just regular people talking about these games on X and so on, where people are just making themselves heard, making it clear that they're sick of the direction that gaming is going in. We're no longer going to tolerate it, and it's only going to be games that deserve to succeed, and word of mouth is what makes their success. Only these games are actually going to sell. Some horrible game that's pushing all the wrong things, again, trying to bring real-world politics into everything. Doesn't matter how many 10 out of 10s it gets from these corrupt sites, PC Gamer, Eurogamer, IGN, whatever it is. They can be giving 11 out of 10s, and no one's gonna care anymore, because any trust that was once there has been broken. These aren't the days of where, like, a mainstream gaming journalist was a magazine where you knew that the people making these reviews and writing articles, they were having fun, they were gamers too, and they had what we thought was the coolest job in the world. Back in the old days, that was all great stuff. Now the perception of game journalists, pure activists, you've seen them, pronouns in their bio, they're way more obsessed with politics, like they dial that up to 10, and their interest in games is at like a 1 or a 2. Like, they see actually having to play a game to then do their review as a burden. They always whinge about this, about, oh, we've got all these games I've got to play, and then I've got to write my review. I just want to write about Donald Trump, and I want to save the world and tell people what they need to think. That is the average game journalist, and honestly, even the average developer. Like, the average person working at BioWare, for instance, is the same. They don't really care that much about games. They just want to be part of a team that's like a cult that agrees with them when it comes to, again, all this real-world politics stuff. They just want to be part of it, and they see their job as an opportunity to re-educate people, to shape opinions, the next generation, to be influenced by them and think like them. And for the longest time, they thought they were getting away with something. And you'll hear them say often, the world has changed, full stop. Like, no. Like, if you've had thoughts of, like, old school games are cooler, where it stars a masculine main character, there's beautiful women, and so on, things have changed since then, and you're a dinosaur left in the past. You're an hysterophobe or something for thinking that stuff is good. The world has changed, and if you don't think that a game that stars an obese character with a half-shaved head extremely unattractive. If you don't think that's a good thing, that's on you, and you need to be re-educated. You need to change your ways. And honestly, for the longest time, that's where things had been going, and it sadly felt like these clowns were actually winning, and there wasn't much we could do against social media. It used to be a much bigger monopoly for these types of people, like Twitter was the worst. Now it's probably the best, how things change. And that's really what's happened. Like, people have gotten so fed up with these weirdos. Like, 10 years ago, yeah, there's a bit of representation. Sometimes some of the diversity, the pandering felt a bit forced, a bit weird, but it was nothing like it is now, where it just felt like something needs to change ASAP, or this hobby is basically dead, at least in the mainstream when it comes to gaming. Well, now things have changed, again, with X having a change of owners. I think even just Donald Trump winning the election, like, it's just changed a lot of the perception, where a lot more people feel like, hey, the majority of America, for instance, is willing to now speak up about all the craziness that's been going on in entertainment, whether it's gaming, media, TV shows, and so on. And these idiots are just starting to lose their power. So they're getting very, very desperate. A lot of these game developers are scared because a lot of the games that will release in the next 12, 18 months, when they started development, it was like peak identity politics, 2020, 2021. And they thought, yes, games like Concord are going to be the next big thing. So even investors were approving this crap because it seemed like in the mainstream it was getting accepted, the world is changing. But really that was just propaganda because people couldn't really speak their mind, speak their opinion. Again, that's what we've seen change with X and lots of other avenues as well, that no, normal people have just been hiding their opinions for the most part because they were scared of getting cancelled or whatever. But really, common sense was still there. It was just being silenced, and that's why all the bad games are failing. So developers are scared because they know as these games start to come out where it's too late to really course correct, maybe some of them will get cancelled, but the ones that release, they're gonna fail like Concord, then the studios are gonna get shut down. The developers within, who are mostly activists, they'll probably struggle to find a job because who wants to hire someone like the team behind Concord, Firewalk Studios? Like, who wants to hire those retards? So it's looking bad for the developers. But game journalists, it's even worse. Like, that is a life support, and those people are shit scared. We've seen these articles keep popping up, like, despite the Veilguard's failure, despite everyone hating Veilguard, no, it's people only hate it because of YouTube propaganda, grifters. No, game journalism is important. I've seen like 6 or 7 of those articles doing the rounds, and it's so desperate. They're always reaching. They accuse other people of grifting and lying, but they are the worst because they try and trick people into thinking a bad game is decent, trying to make a silk purse out of a pig's ear while pretending they're the honest, objective ones. But people totally see through it now. The only people who listen to them are also in that same echo chamber, which is getting ever smaller. Again, the 2024 US election showed that the vast majority of the country, they're thinking about common sense. They just want normal entertainment, normal things, not this craziness. And because these people are scared, you're seeing a lot of people leave X, such as game developers, movie directors, and so on, and they'll give a million reasons. Oh, it's toxic, there's too much hate. But really, it's about the loss of control. Because there's less moderation, people can speak their mind. They're exposing these shit, brainless entertainment products that no one wants anymore. And this is now going to extend to Steam as well, because I'll tell you, when it comes to Steam, the majority of game developers, they hate Steam. The Epic Store proved that. Even though Epic was absolutely god-awful for gamers, paying customers, a lot of developers were trying to prop it up, not just because of the bags of cash that Epic were offering, but because they saw it as a better platform for game developers. There's no user reviews, all those pesky user reviews. Paying customers might give a negative review, speak their mind, and that could deter potential new customers who haven't yet been tricked by deceptive marketing practices, these bad games. So you got the user reviews, obviously the 30% cut, But with Steam, some of that money, at least a decent chunk, goes to improving the user experience for the players, such as the refund system, being able to discuss the game within the community boards, forums, and many other things as well. These are all things that a lot of developers hate, and I'm not talking about your average indie dev who probably appreciates all that. They're trying to make decent games, but definitely the bigger companies, they absolutely hate Steam. So there's now a kind of coordinated effort to try and smear Steam. And I think it's interesting timing, given the same thing is kind of happening with X post the US election, where people are trying to smear it, get advertisers off it, all these different things, people leaving the platform for virtue signaling reasons, really. But if we look at what's happening with Steam, basically some loser group, anti-defamation league or something, this group put some sort of big nothing report together, basically saying Steam is rife with extremism, racism, hate, and all of that. That's not really the story, though. Like, some group who do this to everything, like the group exists to find problems that don't exist and just exaggerate it, as we see from all these sorts of activists. But the real story is how there's a coordinated effort to push this like it's actually news. Like all the same usual suspects, PC Gamer, whoever else, they're pushing this story like Steam is actually a genuine threat and a problem that needs to be stopped. So you can see all the same sort of articles. It feels like a psy-op. ADL report finds Steam is rife with racist posts and images. Steam accused of hosting over 1.8 million instances of extremism and hateful content. And it's like, how are you gauging that? Like, you just know that genuine criticism of a game counts as hate. And they're just trying to push this to fearmonger, essentially. Oh, Steam's really bad. We've all got to get off it. We can't allow the users to discuss, to give their real opinions. And let's look at an example of that. Like, if we look at Dragon Age the Veilguard, which should be an absolute best place for people to be spewing this so-called hate. And the truth is, it's this sort of stuff that the game industry actually hates, whether it's games media, who are kind of in the pocket of the game publishers anyway. That's why they exist. They're sort of a mouthpiece for the publishers. That's why they push positive reviews for Call of Duty, whatever it is. Like, Call of Duty number 15 is getting a 9 out of 10, despite having a laughably short, pretty low quality, overpriced campaign, whereas a game like Alien Isolation, that was great, is getting less than a 5 out of 10, for instance, because it's less mainstream, less advertising dollars are coming in from that publisher. So really what's going on is the game industry as a whole just wants to stop customers from being able to speak their mind. And they'll disguise it as, no, we're the good guys. We want to just protect everyone. We want to stop racism, from hate from having any sort of place. So the key way to do that is just to shut down discussion completely. People don't need to do this. And if they want to talk, they can go to the various game message boards that are out there, whether it's Reddit, where you and I know if you try and give an opinion outside of the hive mind, it's not corporate approved, you're just going to get downvoted. And that means your opinion disappears. Is it real people downvoting? Probably not. It's likely bots. We pretty much know the answer. Or they'll say, go to Reset Era. That's one of, if not the most popular game discussion boards. Oh, you get banned for basically any opinion that doesn't agree with the moderator's politics. So forget about that as well. In fact, on that site, people don't even have discussions, because if you disagree with someone, that's toxic. So you just have to say, yes, consume product, this looks good. Don't say anything bad about company, that's bad as well. That is the mindset on there, essentially. So they just want to shut down people from being able to speak. And if you dig into some of these articles and what's going on, like this ADL organization, like they're known clowns, but the game industry absolutely agrees with what they're talking about. For instance, this, where it says, the ADL says that Valve should adopt specific policies to prohibit extremism. There's currently no policy on Steam that specifically outlaws this kind of content. So the ADL wants to see one implemented. Well, what does that mean? Censorship. Ensure that no one can really speak their mind. Anytime that I see moderation being pushed, like, oh, this subreddit or this message board needs to be moderated more, that's all people are talking about, censorship. it is a slippery slope. I don't want to hear anything about slippery slope fallacy. That's always a con when anyone ever uses that term, because in so many cases, it is a thing. You start to bring in moderation, and it just turns everything into an echo chamber that's corporate approved. What a coincidence. It always turns into something that benefits the big game companies or games media, for instance, where you can only have an opinion that the moderators say is acceptable. And surprise, surprise, the moderators always end up being activists who are power hungry, and they're often in charge of lots and lots of communities like this, where they push the same Gestapo shit onto everyone, where you can't be having any wrong think. You have to agree with our political thoughts. And this continues here. The ADL says Valve should engage with civil society, academics, and researchers in order to shape its policies and prevent vulnerable and marginalized groups from being targeted on Steam. What do you mean engage with academics and researchers? Like, who are these people and what are their job titles? Like, I'm a researcher of online hate? That's not a real thing. Anyone who's doing that sort of work, why did they get into it? This person is purely an activist. They're purely in it for political reasons, and they don't actually care about, like, online hate from a non-biased perspective. Like, they just want to shut people down who have, again, the wrong opinions, wrong political beliefs. That's all anyone like that is. So this whole thing is agenda-driven. It's about getting normal people to stop being able to discuss games, criticize them, raise the fact that mainstream journalism reviews are bullshit, and in a lot of cases are basically paid advertisements for the game company, so that gullible people who don't get so into all of this crap because it fries your brain, let's be honest, and they just buy the game because when they Googled it, the top 5 sites that came up said it was good. The positive, though, is that's sort of the old way of doing things. So that's how the game industry has worked for years and years. But it is changing. This is a desperate attempt trying to smear Steam, everything that's going on X. It isn't working. It really isn't. Like, they're fighting a losing battle. Games media is obsolete. No one cares about it. Again, it's consolidating. Sites are shutting down. And it is going to be the users, the customers, that actually have the power, because the games that are succeeding, it's word of mouth. Unless a lot of people are talking positively about your game, you're going to have trouble. And sure, there's going to be bots. AI will facilitate more just the dead internet theory, a lot of fake, not real people, robots talking amongst each other, saying a game is good. There's still going to be a lot of manipulation going on. But all of that aside, I think this year has shown that people are wisening up. They know the industry as a whole is corrupt, it is hopeless, and we want to see this get better. Like, can that Elon Musk, the Doge government efficiency thing, can that also extend to the game industry or something and get these people out? So many people in the game industry are totally useless, and the industry's not going to heal until they're just completely out. Not just game journalism, but the developers as well. You get some people who blame the management. It's not only the management. The boots on the ground, these companies like BioWare with 1,000 employees, I guarantee you fire 70% of the people there, and you end up with a better game than the Veilguard. It's probably shipped faster, less time to develop, and it feels like it has a more cohesive vision because there's not too many cooks in the kitchen. That's another problem with gaming now. Too many people working on little bits of the game, and it doesn't really come together like a complete puzzle. It always feels all over the place. Now, I say that, but really you need to get rid of everyone at BioWare because that studio, it's a mess. I don't think it can be saved. You might as well shut it down. But there are studios out there that could be saved if you get a lot of these activists out. Needs to happen. People are demanding change. They're only going to buy video games these days if they prove themselves. If the audience agrees it's a game worth buying. That's where things are headed. It's a good thing, and desperate attempts to smear Steam, X, or whatever, they're not going to work. The world is changing, but in a good way, not the dark direction it seemed like things were going a couple of years ago. Thanks for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.